And I am so thankful for you. One of the sweetest memories I have of you that I cherish is how that you will come over and just be there as a help when I'm laboring and having a baby. And then that first night, you stay up pretty much all night with the new grandbaby so that we're able to get some sleep and bring the baby in when it's time to eat. And then you take it back out, change it, and just care for it. And I know we just cherish the love and the tenderness that you have shown our family, and we are so thankful for you.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Wednesday, June 1st, and I just have to tell you something. I don't often share little tidbits about me, but yesterday I did a couple videos and I got my hair done and it's a lot darker, and I've never had my hair colored this dark, and it's also very red. You probably can't tell. But my stylist was like, oh, I got this new color and I want to try it. And I was like, let's go. And then I was realizing that I don't even recognize myself when I'm on camera. So I was like, who is that girl? Who is that girl? I'm like, whoa, this is really dark red. But anyways, that's do you ever go in and you just do whatever your stylist says and it turns out amazing, but then you still don't recognize yourself? Been there, done that? Okay, me. So there are some people that don't frequently dye their hair, and that's the people in the IBLP. Well, Anna Duggar recently got her hair colored, and the Duggars over the years have become more into hair coloring. They definitely don't cut their hair. Well, they do, but it's still very long. Sometimes they trim it. Jill Duggar just chopped her hair. But anyways, so Anna Duggar, she has her she has blonder hair these days. So here's the deal. There has been an influx of people contacting me since Josh's conviction. And before I go into the topic for today's video, if you have tips or if you are someone that happens to know the Duggars that would like to speak with me, whether it's on the record or anonymously, you can email me at tips@withoutacrystalball.com. I get a lot of messages on my Instagram, but I have to be honest, I don't see all of those. So if you've tried me there and I haven't responded, try my email, especially if you're someone that has information about the story. Okay, so let's talk about today's topic. Yesterday, we talked about Anna Duggar and her manipulation and how she was trying to get people to remember things differently and how she was trying to basically pin it on a lot of different people and not her husband. We also heard about how she was not cooperative, and there's just more to the story, and how she'll never actually get divorced from Josh because of her belief system. Now, in the Bible, it does talk about divorce, and apparently in their faith, the person I spoke to explained that they really stand by the fact that Jesus spoke about divorce and he didn't like it. And so because of that, in the Gospels, they believe it's the one thing you're not supposed to do. Even though in Matthew, by the way, Jesus did give a caveat that someone could get divorced if there was a guy doing what Josh did. Legit. Immorality. It's a word, and he qualifies. So Anna could get divorced, but they're not actually honoring the Bible in that way. So, and their cult is they twist scripture. Every other Christian faith I've heard of, most at least, will allow a divorce. So in the months leading up to Josh's trial, conviction, all of it, actually, let's start with in the years leading up to Josh's conviction. There's been a lot that's happened between Josh and Anna, and their relationship has gone through a lot of ebbs and flows. So I was talking to my source who's been around them for more than a decade, and their experience with Josh and Anna has been very different than the way that it was portrayed on the show. On the show, Anna was portraying a dutiful wife that was solely committed to her husband, and Josh was a working man that was solely committed to working and providing for his family, and they were committed to having as many kids as possible and being hands-on parents. And Anna was a homeschooler and raising her kids and being a stay-at-home mom. It sounds like even from the very early days of Josh and Anna's wedding, or Josh and Anna's relationship, things were not as, I don't know, great as they would seem, because it started off with kind of a rock, a thud. Because apparently, when Josh married Anna, he wasn't super honest with her that he had potentially had a girlfriend before him. Her name was Kaylee Holt, which now goes by Kaylee Tull. He was in a betrothed relationship, meaning he was going to marry her even though he was only 14 when it happened. Which, by the way, we'll get to the whole weirdness of the courting in this group because, y'all, people are spilling all kinds of details. So he apparently does not tell Anna about this relationship. And once Anna finds out that he had another girlfriend, she's like devastated. And that causes her to have a huge blow up with Josh about, or a blowout, or I don't even know. She gets upset to the extent that once she realizes that Josh had this relationship with Kaylee, Anna moved them to Washington, D.C., allegedly. She couldn't be in the same state as a woman that he had previously dated who was married and had kids, even though that woman wanted nothing to do with Josh. Yeah, allegedly. Once that happened, she then apparently banned the Holts from any events with the Duggars because apparently Anna didn't want the Holts around in any capacity because Josh had a relationship with Kaylee when they were kids. Can you even imagine? This is like, they didn't even kiss. Kaylee and Josh were like babies when they dated. But I think there was this belief that Anna thought maybe he still had feelings for her and because it was his first love. So the Duggars' relationship with the Holts was already stressed out because they didn't really agree with the Duggars about how they handled Josh. But then on top of that, they got like, I don't even know, kicked out of the family functions and weren't invited anymore because of Anna. Because Anna didn't want to be around them because of Kaylee. Anna girl, like seriously. Okay, so I mean, I can admit like being lied to about your relationships might be tough. And in Fundy World, I'm told that if you have a failed courtship, it's like the worst thing ever. Like you're tainted and people are really, 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 it's very important that they have a first love marriage because they've given their heart away to someone else, which isn't really a thing.
There is nothing as wonderful as being pursued by the one that loves you, because if you pursue him and you get him to like you back, what are you going to do when you're married? When you're married and you have a lot of little ones, do you want a husband that's going to pursue you and love you and be interested in the things you're interested in? Well, then wait and step back and guard your heart and let him pursue you and pursue your parents and pursue God. I knew for almost 2 years that Josh was probably the one God had for me. I felt it in my heart. I believed it. My dad felt the same way. And when my dad talked with me, he said, don't tell mommy, don't tell anyone else, but you pray for him every day. And I did. Your spouse is a gift from God. When you begin a relationship, you don't need to be feeling your package. You need to be keeping your heart and your mind pure.
After they move, obviously they have to move back because Josh is caught cheating. Well, it wasn't even just so much cheating. It was that the In Touch put out the police report, which exposed what happened with his siblings, or what he did to his siblings in 2002 and 2003. He quit his job, quit his lobbying job, working with like family values stuff, and they came back to Arkansas. When they moved back to Arkansas, things did not get better because then within a few months, Josh gets caught with an Ashley Madison account and he is caught cheating on Anna, and he then has to admit publicly to having problems looking at adult content and having affairs. Subsequently, a woman named Danica Dillon comes out publicly, sues him, and says that he did things to her in Pennsylvania that are terrible. That lawsuit was eventually dismissed, but Danica stands by her story to this day and has spoken out repeatedly since Josh was convicted and arrested. So when Josh went away to Reformers Unanimous, apparently it wasn't Anna that was blaming Josh, but she was blaming herself. And others around her were also blaming herself too, blaming Anna too. The source I told said it wasn't super uncommon in circles for the ladies to be whispering that if Anna had just given Josh what he needed, he wouldn't have had to go look for it elsewhere. And apparently because Anna didn't want to give Josh what he wanted, which was maybe something she wasn't comfortable with doing, he had to go find it from someone and he paid for it. Not the most, blaming a wife for a husband's infidelity is gross, and it's only the man's fault, and you don't blame the wife. So, but this is like the misogyny that they live in. So Anna from the very beginning was blamed by a lot of people that Josh wasn't having his needs met, and that's why he strayed. So Josh never actually gets better, and Anna doesn't really learn a whole lot because Josh never repents. And Josh goes to Reformers Unanimous for 6 months or whatever, however long it is, and she moves in with the Duggars. Now, throughout the entirety of their marriage, I've had multiple sources tell me that while Anna calls Josh a diligent worker, he actually was still very financially dependent on his parents, and he didn't really have self-reliance at all. So that when he moved back to Arkansas, they were still very heavily dependent on Jim Bob and Michelle. Now, another thing that I was told by the source is that they kept having children, but Anna didn't really she had no problem leaving the kids at the big house. And so when she lived with Josh in Siloam Springs in their house, it wasn't uncommon, the source said, for a lot of the kids to still be sleeping over at the big house, like Mackenzie, Michael, Marcus, the bigger kids. And because of that, the kids got so used to spending time over at the big house that it became like a production when they actually had to go home. Now, Mackenzie and Josie were born within months of each other. And I'm sure for Mackenzie, it's I just want to play and be with my aunt, who's also my best friend. But at the same time, they never the person I spoke to said Anna heavily relied on it. And the kids were at the Duggars house so much that it actually created issues between Anna and Michelle because they had differing opinions on raising the kids. For one, Anna thought it was okay for the kids to allegedly, let's just say, wear pants. Mackenzie could wear pants, and Michelle wasn't down for that. And that actually led to an argument between the two of them, allegedly, apparently. So anyways, she's not really with the kids as much as possible. She's the kids are with the Duggars a lot of the time. Josh is working and Anna's chasing around, having to run after Josh. And on top of that, multiple sources, including young women that were a part of this world, have told me that Anna was not nice to the young women that were around Josh, even if they had zero interest in Josh, because Anna looked at every single woman that came into their family as a threat, and they were treated accordingly poorly. Multiple women now have expressed that when they've had interactions with her, she does the best to try to separate them from having any kind of conversation with Josh, even though, again, these women have zero interest in Josh. Anna seemingly could not trust Josh enough to even have a conversation when she was in the same room with him, because one source said that when she was talking to Josh literally about something unrelated to, getting married and having an affair with him, Anna came storming over, grabbed his hand, and was all over marking her territory. So they said that it was Anna wanted the girl to know that this was my husband. Conversely, another woman told me about how she had been invited by Anna to go to an event with her and the kids. And when Josh came in and wanted to go, Anna would not allow Josh to attend because the young girl was going with them. So Anna kept him from interacting with any women, even if the women had zero interest with him, because she did not trust him. I mean, can you blame him? He's a cheating philanderer. But at the same time, Anna, these were kids. One of the girls was 15 or 16. But I guess knowing his age demographic, you never know. So Josh and Anna start heavily relying on mom and dad to help with childcare, and a lot of that falls onto sister Jana. And then after all of that is said and done, they decide to sell their house in Siloam Springs, and they're going to build their dream house after they have to renovate it, which then has them moving back in with mom and dad at the big house in the shed. Like they moved into the guest house shed. So Josh and Anna's relationship has been what has been described to me by people that know them as Josh is very emotionally controlling of Anna. He definitely has a lot of control over what she's like, where she can go and who she can speak to, and how she spends her money. And she has like her social media was basically controlled by him, and who she could spend time with was controlled by him. But on the flip side, that control went both ways. So she also was very controlling of who he spoke to and who he interacted with and what he was doing. And she was like obsessed with keeping him away from young women. You've got oldest daughter spending almost all their time over at the Duggars house. You have young teens that are telling me that Anna's like trying to block Josh from even talking to them. And you start to wonder, what the hell did Anna think was going on? Why is she so concerned about what Josh is doing that she's trying to intercede in every single aspect of his life? Did she know his propensity to deal with, like, she claims she understood and knew what he was doing to his sisters. Was she intentionally trying to prevent things from happening with these younger girls by blocking that? Or was she worried that Josh was going to try to have an affair with, an older teen that's of age? I find it all very concerning, but the biggest thing that I was told by the girls that have been on the wrath of Anna is that she's just not very nice to them, like blames them for no reason when they've done nothing. And Josh is the one that's done nothing too, but she doesn't get mad at Josh, she gets mad at the girls, and makes it impossible and uncomfortable for a lot of the girls to even want to be around, to the extent that a lot of these girls ended up not even wanting to be around when Anna was there. Which gets me to this next point. Today, Anna's relationship with Jim Bob and Michelle is tense. So let's talk about where things are at today. My source I talked to today, or they described the relationship between Anna and Jim Bob as strained, but codependent. So she needs Jim Bob and Michelle to help her with the kids. She needs Jim Bob and Michelle to help her out financially. She needs them in the context of, hey, I'm going to have to raise 7 kids by myself. But she doesn't always get along with them, and certainly isn't really thrilled with them at this point, and definitely has blamed them for the way that they raised Josh, and blamed them for not the way that they managed his issues as a child, and somehow thinking that that's how he got here. It's a weird continuum, because in one side she blames Jim Bob and Michelle allegedly for not taking care of Josh's issues as a kid, which then got him to here today. But on the other breath, she believes Josh when he says he's innocent. How are you going to blame his mom and dad for not taking care of it and then also think he's innocent? Okay, so she has basically cut off contact with most of the family, and there is not a lot of love lost, as I told you yesterday, because Anna and the siblings aren't really on speaking terms, at least those of them that believe that Josh is guilty. Because Anna has burned so many damn bridges that no one wants to be around her, and she's really tough to be around sometimes. So this is all alleged from this source. So bringing up the issues yesterday that I brought up in my video about how Anna wasn't cooperating with the authorities and how she denied the forensic evaluation, I want to again clarify that was the one that was done before the actual trial, and they wanted to evaluate them right as Josh was getting arrested, but they declined. Again, the source can't speak to the fact if there was a court order, because like you and like me, we can't see a sealed document related to children. So, but Anna is still heavily reliant on the Duggars to take care of the kids, and has also had put a lot on the plate of Jana. So Jana Duggar, Josh's oldest sister, he's younger, the oldest sister in the family, but younger than Josh, has had to pick up the slack for Anna as she dumped the kids off when the kids were when she went to go move in with Josh while he was out on bond. And then Jana had to pick up the slack, which ultimately resulted in Jana being completely overwhelmed, totally overloaded. And we all already know about the story about Mariella wandering into the street and Jana lying to the police, telling them she didn't know who Mariella was. So I talked to the source about that specific situation, and this is what they said. First of all, they were shocked that the baby would have been able to walk that far, although not like totally surprised. But the way that the source explained it was that the property is very hilly and it has a very steep hill and a pond, which Mariella obviously would have had to walk around. Not only that, is that the kids almost always play together, and they couldn't believe that the kids had allowed her to wander off and nobody noticed it. Their thought was like, well, was Mariella carried there? Like, how did this happen? I don't understand this. Well, there was a lot of secrecy, and at the time when Mariella was like out at the pond, like no one was actually looking for the baby. Thankfully, everything was fine. She wasn't hurt, but there was a lot of secrecy around that, and the Duggars didn't tell anyone about it because there was a lot of concern, apparently, that because it involved Josh's daughter, that it could potentially come back to bite Anna and Josh and be sort of this weird factor in his case. Now, that never became the situation. Jana ended up copying a plea deal, and she has, like, as long as she commits, like, whatever her requirements are, she had to pay a fine. And if she meets the requirements of X amount of time without any other incidents, it'll be like removed from her record. So, but it's still just a weird situation. People still feel like, in a way, that even though Jana was the one that did it, there's some level of responsibility because Anna was really relying on Jana and Michelle to pick up all of the pieces while she ran off and took care of Josh. So if you're wondering if Jana's gotten any like slack or if she's been able to actually get some free time in here, the answer is probably next to zero, because she's still doing a lot to help out Michelle, because now they've got 7 kids to take care of on top of Anna. And, you know, Jana is basically the mom. So Anna is apparently not the most hands-on mom, kind of scattered and disoriented and distracted by her husband, which gets me to this point. If you're so distracted by what your husband's doing that you're accusing young teens allegedly of trying to flirt with your husband or get vengeful and mean to any woman that even looks his way, you have to like start to wonder, like, am I in the best marriage? Is this really the way I want to live? He's already cheated on me. And by the way, Jesus said you can divorce him for immorality. You know what I'm saying? And he's met that criteria multiple times. So are you surprised to hear some of these details? Like, one, she made them move to DC. She kicked the Holtz out of the house. She's banned people from the property because of Josh. She dumped kids off, and Jana got in trouble for Mariella wandering away. Like, does any of this surprise you? Does it make you feel differently about Anna? And then, by the way, the judge put out the requirements for once he's released. And once he's released, Josh will not be allowed to have any unsupervised contact with any kid, including his own. And the court said that Anna could supervise him, or Jim, Bob, and Michelle. I feel some days like I'm living in Bizarro world. How is it that Anna, who can't even supervise her husband when he's talking to minors, apparently, how is she going to supervise him with his own children? Or is she just going to have the kids just stay living at the Duggars? I don't get it. And how are the Duggars going to supervise Josh when they couldn't even supervise Josh before? There's so many little issues I have with all of this. On top of that, he's going to have to take polygraph tests. He's going to be on probation for 20 years, supervised, by the way. He won't have access to a computer. He can't have an iPhone. I mean, they couldn't keep to these rules before. They allowed him to have an iPhone before when he wasn't supposed to have one. Now, he didn't have a criminal conviction and probation telling him he couldn't, but it makes me wonder, like, no one's been able to hold him accountable up until now, and this is why he's in the situation that he's in. I mean, one of the reasons. How are they going to hold him accountable once he gets out in like 12 years? He hasn't been moved yet. He's still in Washington County, and he's still in the detention center. We're looking at Segoviaville or the Texarkana place, but either place is not the best. They don't have the best facilities, and they're just, you know, he's going to be 6 to 5 hours away from Anna. So Anna's going to actually have to, you know, buckle up and buckle down and decide if she's going to chase Josh to go to the prison once a week and visit him, or if she's going to buckle down and actually try to put her kids' lives back together. The saddening for me in all of this is that there's little kids that have been relying on her and little kids that have been relying on stability. And it seems like nobody gives a flying F about the little kids more than like those of us that are out here in the middle of the world trying to say like, are we going to protect those kids? So we'll keep you posted, but that's the long of the short of it when it comes to Anna and Josh's relationship. Tell me your thoughts. Bye, guys.